All right, outside. Good morning. We don't have a microphone for today, so I apologize. Yeah, no, the speakers are here. We just don't have the microphone for today. So we'll have the microphone for tomorrow. We'll say it is a tremendous zechus, Baruch Hashem, to be here within our Beis HaKnesses, within our new Beis HaMedrash. Such a tremendous zechus, Baruch Hashem, and such a beautiful, our first Daf Yomi shir ever in this new and beautiful and incredible space. So, as I spoke about yesterday, I know that the coming days will be filled with changes, and changes are beautiful, changes are incredible because they open the door for so many beautiful and incredible opportunities. Amongst the changes, I want to just set everybody's expectations is, we were davening in the old shul, there was a lot of extra space. So here, in Am Yisroel, we're going to be utilizing every seat. So I feel like a Southwest, please do not put your personal luggage on the middle seat in an offer today. So however, just know, especially for davening, the seats are going to be used. So again, for sure, I'm sure it's fine, but just be mindful and just look around. If you see people, we don't have enough tables yet here in the Beis Medrash, so you want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to be able to sit at a makom, to sit at a table, to be able to learn properly. So just be mindful in terms of where you're putting your personal belongings, so that no one feels boxed out. And that's especially going to be true in Mirz Hashem for davening as well. And I'll say and again, for many different things in the new building, we're still trying to find our way a little bit. So certain things may not be fully set up. Certain things, may have to pivot a little bit. So apologize in advance for any turbulence that may occur over the course of this move. But Baruch Hashem, what a zechus it is to be able to be here in such a holy and beautiful, magnificent place. Also, as you can see, our Sfarim are not in yet because today they're putting in the Aron Kodesh, so just everything's going to get a little bit dusty and probably moved around again. So Mirz Hashem, in the next week or so, we'll hopefully have everything set up mostly as it should be. But Baruch Hashem, what a zechus it is to be in an aesthetically beautiful place, which is Mirz Hashem. Now, the aesthetic beauty is here. And in Mirz Hashem, now our avoda is to fill it with spiritual beauty as well, which I have no doubt that we will be zocheh to do in Mirz Hashem in the coming years. Also, like I said, we do have a sound system, so beginning tomorrow, Mirz Hashem will be a little bit more tapped into it in Mirz Hashem, but the acoustics in here are great. I will endeavor to speak a little bit louder. If at any point I'm not speaking loud enough, just let me know. And I will say with that, Shechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Let us begin the first daf of many dafim here in this Beis Medrash by beginning by thanking all of our sponsors. To thank our Talmud Torah sponsor for Tafshin Pehei 5785. Rab Naftali Tilson, for dedicating all of the shiurim and drashos this year. Tilson Mishpacha from Eretz Yisrael as a zechus for besuros tovos for all of Am Yisroel. Our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Teves Habalin Latova, the Kelman Mishpacha, in memory of Amit Ben David Levy, the brother of Itay Levy, who was killed fighting in Gaza on the first night of Chanukah. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, his precious neshama will have an aliyah and his family a nechama. And Saeed and Simahakim for dedicating the shir today in honor of our new Makom Kodesh. We should be Ezras Hashem. IT says we should be Ezras Hashem run out of space even faster than our old building. No. Good. In Mirz Hashem, the next rabbi will have incredible hatzlacha. In Mirz Hashem, building the next building, you should be with incredible mazel. I'll take the bracha of maybe running out of space in the Beis Medrash and having to move into the new shul. That halavai, I don't think that's so crazy. I think that day is coming probably sooner than we think. But Mirz Hashem, we should be zocha that this mikdash ma'at should serve us for many years to come until we are zocha Mirz Hashem to move it together with the Mashiach Mirz Hashem Teretz Yisrael here Rabbi Aminu. So with that, let us begin. We have an incredible daf ahead of us today. Today's daf is Lamed Zayin 37, and we are picking up in Mirz Hashem. Where did we leave off? 2 dots. V'enakol ksherin lodun dinei nefashos. Right. So remember again, not everyone is fit to adjudicate capital cases. So remember again, what was the issue with capital cases? So remember again, the halacha over here by capital cases was that you need a Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin has to not only be comprised of 23 people, but also has to be comprised of people who are genealogically fit. So the Gemara says, My time, what's the reason? So the Gemara says, my time, the Tana of Yosef, Kashem shebeizin menukin b'tzedek, kach menukin mikol mum. The same way that Beis Din has to be free from any spiritual blemishes, so too again, Beis Din has to be free from any other mum. Now, mum, the Gemara's understanding over here means genealogical blemish. Beis Din has to be free from any genealogical blemish. Amar Amar says, Mikra, what's the pasuk? Kulach yafech rayasi. Ein bach. Everything about you, my beloved, is beautiful, and there is no mum in you. So the Gemara says, the Gemara Dashins over here, this is a reference to the Sanhedrin, and the mum is a genealogical one. Vidilma mum mamish, maybe it refers to an actual mum. In other words, maybe it's not the genealogical mum, but maybe in fact it is an actual mum, and the Torah is saying, or the Pasuk is saying, that halacha l'maisa, remember the Sanhedrin can't have a physical mum. The Gemara says, Amar Ravacha bar Yaakov Amar Kra v'syatzvu sham imach. So the pasuk says by Moshe Rabbeinu, when Moshe Rabbeinu goes ahead and collects the 70 zekanim, the pasuk says they will stand there with you imach. So the Gemara dashins imach b'dom lecha means that when you assemble the members of the Sanhedrin, they should be like you. In which sense? That halacha l'maisa, well, the Gemara is suggesting in which sense, that the same way Moshe Rabbeinu, you are not genealogically blemished, you are genealogically intact and whole, so too again, those who are with you, other dayanim, should also be intact and whole. But maybe what it means over there is Moshe Rabbeinu, the same way that you're there and the Shekhinah is with you, so to the other judges who stand there, the Shekhinah should be with them as well. They will shoulder the responsibility with you, with those who are compared to you, meaning Moshe Rabbeinu, you are genealogically intact. So too, again, those who go ahead and adjudicate with you should also be genealogically intact. Again, I will say, so an incredible Gemara. Good. So the process, therefore, again, that's the Raya, that for Dinei Nefashis, for capital cases, Halacha L'maisa, again, we have to have people who are genealogically unblemished. Beautiful. Says the Mishnah. Sanhedrin haisa kechatzi goren agula. So we'll say it's really a beautiful Gemara. The Sanhedrin sat in a semicircle. So the Gemara says, the Mishnah says, Kadesh roen zeh, in order that they would be able to see each other, right? You want the members of the Sanhedrin, when they deliberate, to be able to see each other. So then there would be two scribes in the Beis Din, one on the right, one on the left. The kosvin divrei mechayvin v'divrei mezakin, and they would write on there. They would record. They were the court scribes. They were the stenographers, and as the stenographers, they recorded everything that happened in the proceedings. And they would write the opinion of the judges who are looking to exonerate, and the opinion of the judges who are looking to find guilty. Rabbi Yehuda says shlosha. There would actually be 3 stenographers. Echad kosev divrei hamazakin. So one would go ahead and write the opinions of the exonerators. Ve'echad kosev divrei hamachayvin. And one would write the words of the indictors. We'll call it vashlishi kosev divrei hamazakin v'divrei hamachayvin. The third stenographer, interestingly enough, would record all of the opinions, right? So you had one who was dedicated to the opinions of the exonerators, one to the opinion of the indictors, and then one who was kind of collecting all of the information as a whole. So we have like a backup. Good. So we'll say, by the way, it's interesting that if you take a look at Rashi says over here, Rashi says, Shlosha, Havu shemitoch Torah chatamim shiyar ba'aleim yitu b'davar, ela echad kosev divrei hamazakin ve'echad kosev divrei hamachayvin, ve'agimel kosev divrei kulam, umitoch shein Torah rav aleim lo yiktziru b'davar, b'im yita echa mehem yochiach ksav shal shlishi. So we'll say, so it's interesting. So this way, again, we want to make sure that we have accurate court records. So how do you do that? So again, if you have one guy focusing on one opinion, or one school of opinion, the other focusing on the other school of opinion, and then a third party kind of taking everything into account, so halacha l'maisa, again, between all of them, we will have a complete record for the Beis Din. Top of Lamed Zayin, 37a. The Shalosh Shuros. Shel Talmidei Chachamim Yoshin Lifneim. There are 3 rows of Talmidei Chachamim who were in front of the Beis Din. So just you can imagine, right? So the Beis Din is seated in a semicircle, and in front of them 3 rows of Talmidim. So the Gemara says, Kol echad ve'echad makiras makomo. Now, interestingly enough, we'll see Rashi says over here, Shalosh Shuros. Rashi says, Kol echad kaminyan Sanhedrin eser mishlosha. Each row had 23 students in it. The Gemara says, and the idea over here is these rows were kind of like the Sanhedrin. By baseball? What do they keep? What is it? Bullpen, right? This was right. This is where. So this was these rows were comprised of Talmidei Chachamim, who again were the future Dayanim of Klal Yisrael. That's what was happening over here. So therefore, again, now, boss, we're going to see something very interesting, that depending on which row you were seated by station. So row one, again, those were the upper Talmidim. Row 2 Talmidim, and row 3 were row 3 Talmidim. So again, you didn't just choose a seat wherever you wanted to sit. At the end of the day, again, you were seated in accordance with your station. Kol echad ve'echad makiras makomo. Everyone knew their place. So we had this theme already in yesterday's daf as well, which is this idea that sometimes in life we feel inadequate when we acknowledge what we're not. But the truth is, it's only when I acknowledge what I'm not that I'm really able to go ahead and maximize what I am. So there's nothing wrong with being a third row Talmud. There's nothing wrong with, or being a third row Talmud in the Sanhedrin. That's where you're holding right now. But again, Abba said the beautiful part is there's no glass ceiling. The beautiful part is there's always the opportunity and ability to advance. So what happens? So we'll say, so let's say again they had to pull someone out of row 1. And again, we'll discuss exactly what the particular issue is over here. But Lamaisa, let's say they had to go ahead and pull someone out of row 1. So what do you do? So the lashon they use is if they had to convey smicha to someone in row 1. So what would they do? What would happen in that type of situation? So the Gemara says, so we'll say, if you have to, so in other words, let's say Beis Din now, if the Sanhedrin needs another dayan, where do you pull the other dayan from? Row 1. That's where the dayan comes from. So the Gemara says, so what happens after now remember again, after all of this happens, so now Sanhedrin pulls a new dayan from row 1. So what happens now? What occurs now? There's a vacancy in row 1. So what happens when there's a vacancy in row 1? By the way, there are vacancies in row 1. I just want to point out what this is, right? It's going to become prime real estate, right? So Lamaisa, now what ends up happening? So when they pull someone out of row 1, so now that sets off a progression. Then someone from row 2, and not someone. Remember again, this is highly choreographed, because the move to row 1 is a significant move. So that means someone from now that there's a vacancy in row 1, someone from row 2 moves up to row 1, which now also means what? Someone from row 3 moves up to row 2. And again, this is a highly choreographed process. So the Gemara goes weiter. So and then what happens? Now there's a vacancy in row 3. So now there's a vacancy in row 3. What happens? We need to borim lahen od echad min hakal. We need to go ahead and pull someone out of the general assembly. The kehila umoshivin also b'shlishis v'lo haya yoshev b'mkomo shal rishon el yoshev b'makom haroi lo. So again, Abba, you would have thought, well, now there's an opening in row 1. Just choose someone from the kehila and put him in row 1. No, that's not the way it happens. We choose someone from the kehila, he goes into row 3. Someone from row 3 goes into row 2, and someone from row 2 ultimately goes into row 1. That's the way it happens. So the Gemara goes weiter. So we'll say, from where do we know this? Now, the first thing the Gemara is focusing on over here is the semicircle. From where do we know that Beis Din sits in a semicircle? So Amar Barchanina da Amar Kra. So again, we'll say it's actually quite beautiful. The pasuk over here quotes from Shir Hashirim. Shrareich Agan Hasar al yechsar hamazag. So literally translated, so sirarech means your navel, your stomach, is like a basin of the moon. A basin of the moon. Right? Or I should say, your navel is shaped like the moon. Al yechsar hamazag. Do not diminish the dilution ratio. All right, so we'll discuss what this means. So shararech is the Sanhedrin. So we'll say, so the shararech, what the Gemara refers to as the stomach, the stomach, that is the Sanhedrin. Lama nikra shararech. So why is the Sanhedrin called the shararech? Sheyosheves b'tiburo shel olam. This is so beautiful, because the Sanhedrin sits literally again in the center of the world. What does it mean that it sits in the center of the world? Rashi says b'tiburo shel olam shebeis hamikdash be'emtza shel olam. The Beis Hamikdash is in the middle of the world. We'll say, to me it was so profound that we were doing this Gemara today. As much as Baruch Hashem, we build and we build and we build. It is so important to always remember that we're building in Galus. We're building in Galus, and at the end of the day, right, Galus is not where we are supposed to be. At the end of the day, we have one home and one home only, and that is Eretz Yisrael. And that home literally is in the center of the world. There's a centrality to it. Now again, like we've said so many times, Baruch Hashem, that's why the beauty of investing in buildings of Kedusha is that in Eretz Hashem, they come with us, right? They come with us. But it's so important to recognize that as successful and as happy and as settled and as kaddish as we are, this, geographically, this is not where we belong. We belong in the center of the world, where the Sanhedrin is, where the Beis Hamikdash is. So ultimately it's called the stomach, just like the stomach is the center, so too the Beis Hamikdash is the center. So Agan, so what does it mean Agan when it says like a basin? Shemegina kala olam kulo. The Sanhedrin protects the entire world. Has-Sahar, what does it mean that it's like the moon? Shehidome le-Sahar, that the Sanhedrin is like, comparable ultimately to the moon itself. That just like the moon goes ahead and radiates light. So Rashi says over here, va'agula. So it's not the light, actually Rashi says over here, it's the semicircle. Right? Just like the moon throughout much of the month is like a semicircle or circular, so to the Sanhedrin sits in this circular fashion as well. Beautiful. Al yachsar hamazag. What does it mean? Don't diminish the dilution. Shem chutzrach echa mehem lotzeis roin im yesh esrim ushloshe kineged Sanhedrin kitana. This is interesting. If someone from the Sanhedrin needs to leave, he needs to take care of his personal needs, he needs to use the restroom, you can't leave unless there are 23 people there. Right? Fascinating. You can't leave unless there are 23 people there. So we'll say, by the way, think about that. Right? So I'm sorry. Yes, so again, can you imagine we'll say you're a member of the Sanhedrin, you need to go to the bathroom. If there are 23 people there, you can go to the bathroom. If there are 23 people there, you can't go to the bathroom. You gotta wait till someone comes in. What's the Pshat we'll say? It's incredible. What does it take to be a member of the Sanhedrin? Let's say member of Sanhedrin. What does it take in general when we have leadership positions? Achrayas. What were you going to say? Strong bladder? Yeah. Strong bladder. Yeah, strong bladder. Yeah, strong. True also. Not incorrect. Right? But I just want to say achrayas. So I want to say, so often in life, right, we do stuff, and if it doesn't get done, it doesn't get done, or someone else will do it. So let's say, what does it mean to be a member of the Sanhedrin? What does it mean to be a person who has leadership responsibility? Achrayas. The buck stops with you. If you are a member of the Sanhedrin, you have an achrayas towards Klal Yisrael. The achrayas doesn't take a break. There's never a break. And by the way, if you need a break because you have to go to the bathroom, no problem. You can take your break as long as what? There's someone else who's standing in for you for the couple of minutes that you're going to be gone. Because the achrayas, the responsibility, always has to be taken. Okay, maybe it can't be the same person who's taking the achrayas himself all of the time. That is possible. That's absolutely possible. But lamaisa, again, even if you can't do it, you have to ensure that there is someone else who can. Incredible. All right, so let's go back there. So bitnech arema schitim. So it says beautiful. So another pasuk that refers to the Sanhedrin. Your stomach is like a pile of wheat. Now, again, I will say, so this is all Shlomo HaMelech and Shira Shirim, which is supposed to be this love ballad between Klal Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So your stomach is like a pile of wheat. What does that mean? Just like a pile of wheat, everyone gets benefit from it. Sanhedrin also, everyone benefits from their reasoning, right? When the Sanhedrin espouses the reasoning for their particular rulings, so everyone benefits from that. Next, Suga Bashoshanim. What does it mean when it says like a row of or like a fence of roses. This is beautiful. Shafilu kisuga shel shoshanim lo yifrutzu bahen paratzos. Klal Yisrael wants to do the right thing. And even if there is not a strong protective barrier, even if all there is a barrier of roses. Now we'll say, bepashtos, a barrier of roses is in general not a very significant barrier. So halacha l'maisa, Klal Yisrael is so diligent and vigilant and loving of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's words. I don't need a whole protective wall to keep me from sinning. All I need is what? All I need is a little row of roses to go ahead and keep me from committing averos, and I'll respect that. So beautiful. So we'll say it's beautiful, incredible. Listen to this. This certain min, right? This min means someone who's a heretic, doesn't believe. So a guy who's a min once said to Rav Kahana, Amrisa, Nida Shari Liyachuda Bahade Gavra. So listen to this. He said, I heard you Jews, right? That when a woman is in Nida, she's allowed to be alone with her husband. But how does the halacha allow for a woman who's in Nida to be alone with her husband? After all, Efshar Eish Benuras Ve'enam Have Heves. Could fire take hold and it doesn't consume? Meaning, in other words, what this guy was asking from Rav Kahana was that aren't we concerned, right? Aren't we concerned that halacha l'maisa, if a man is alone with his wife who is in nida, that they're going to go ahead and come to sin? To which the Gemara says, Amrlei HaTorah, first white line, about end of the first white line, HaTorah idalenu suga b'shoshanim mashafilu suga k'shoshanim lo yifritzu b'hen pratzos. So the Torah says, Klal Yisrael is so respectful of halacha, so mindful of halacha, that even just a row of roses, right? Even just a very simple protective fence is enough to protect us from sin. By the way, it happens to be a different reason. It's a good shayla. Right? There is an Isra Yichud. Like we learned about the Isra Yichud. So if there's an Isra Yichud, which means a man is not allowed to be alone with any woman who is an erva to him, how is a man allowed to be alone with his wife when she is a nida? It's a good shayla. The Gemara asks the shayla. And the answer is, pas besalo. Literally, again, bread in the basket. This idea that since a husband knows that his wife is going to become mutter to him, permitted to him, and not so long from now, he's able to control himself and restrain himself in the right way. Okay, incredible. Reish Lakish says from here, Kepelach harimon rakasech. This is beautiful. The pasuk says, like a section of the pomegranate are your temples. Rakasech means your temples. The Gemara darshans it, afilu reikanim shebach malei misas karimon. A little bit of a play on words. Even the reikanim, even those who are empty, ultimately, again, are filled with mitzvos like a rimon. Rabbi Zera says from here, Vayarach esriach begadav. Pasuk says again, that literally Yitzchak Avinu smelled the clothing of Yaakov. This is when Yaakov came in pretending to be Esav. So he smelled the scent of his clothing. So Gemara says, Al tikri begadav ela bogdav. Don't read it as begadav, his clothing, rather read it as bogdav, those who rebel against him. What does that mean about saying? This is so beautiful. Even those who rebel against HaKadosh Baruch Hu have a beautiful scent. Meaning, even people who commit averos still have so much good associated with them. An incredibly profound and important yisod. Hano Beryonis, where it tells a story. I will say I have a certain group of biryonim. Biryonim are, we translate them as like no good nicks, and that's not exact translation, but you understand, right? A group of guys who are really not doing the right thing. So the word there is biryonim, and again, really like usually Rashi comments over here. Baryoni pritzim, lashaburim. So often it can mean immoral people, very unrefined chevra. So Hana Baryoni, the Havi Bishilu said Rabbi Zera. So we'll say, so there was this group of Baryonim who lived in the neighborhood of Rabbi Zera. David Makarev Luhu, listen to this. And Rabbi Zera was Makarev them. It's so beautiful. Rabbi Zera was Makarev them. Rabbi Zera felt, why should you write anyone off? So he went out of his way to Makarev this chevra. So kihechi dinahajulu b'tiyufta. Why? He thought, if I keep them close, they'll do tshuva. If I keep them close, there's a better possibility that they're tshuva. V'havukapti rabbanon. The rabbis felt that Rabbi Zera was doing the wrong thing. The rabbis felt, Rabbi Zera, these are not the kind of people that you should be keeping close. These are the kind of people you should write off. Write them off. What happens? Kinach nafshet Rabbi Zera, and Rabbi Zera died. Amri, so listen to this. These Baryonim, listen to this, what I'll say. These Baryonim said, Ata idna, hava charicha katan sakeh, da have bain alei rachame. So until now, the man with the short, singed legs, that's how they refer to Rabbi Zera. So I'll say this was a story. Remember again, we saw Rashi points out the story. Rabbi Zera wanted to test his piety to see if he was holding on the right level. He went and he sat in an oven, and it turns out that his legs got singed. See, he was known as the man with the singed, there's more to the story than that, but for our purpose to say that's it. So again, he was known as the man with the singed legs. So when Rabbi Zera died, these Bayonim said, up until now, Rabbi Zera was always davening for us. He was always advocating for us. He was always taking care of us. So the Gemara says, Hashta man ba'i alei rachami. Now, who is going to advocate for us? Who's going to daven for us? Hirhuru bilibayhu va'avdu tshuva. Sure enough, what happened? They went ahead and they thought in their hearts, right? They had this hirhur tshuva, hiru bilibayhu, which means they had these thoughts of tshuva, and ultimately, again, they came to do tshuva. So we'll say, it is such a profound story with so many profound lessons. So first of all, the power of believing in someone. The power of believing in someone. And so often in life, if you believe in someone, you give them the power to believe in themselves. These other Rabbanim, they wrote off this chevra. And I want to point out something incredible. Rabbi Zera believed in them. Now, if you notice, by the way, what did these guys do when Rabbi Zera was alive? What did they do? Nothing, right? They didn't do anything. Right? They didn't affect any change. They didn't start coming to learn Torah, putting on tefillin, putting on mezuzahs. None of that stuff. Nothing happened while Rabbi Zera was alive. But he stirred something inside of them. So that when he died, they're like, this Rabbi Zera, he cared about us so much. He cared enough to believe in us. He's not here anymore to believe in us. If he's not here anymore to believe in us, then you know what? It's time for us to believe in ourselves. The power of believing in other people, giving them the ability to believe in themselves. That's lesson number one. Lesson number two, I will say, is this last piece over here, which is so incredibly profound. Lesson number two really is, sometimes we think that just because we can't see change, that we haven't affected change. Right? If you ask Rabbi Zera, what do you think? Did you succeed with these guys or not? I guarantee Rabbi Zera would have said, no, I tried, but nothing happened. Didn't move the needle at all. But he did. When he was alive, you couldn't see the movement. But as soon as he died, so we'll say, so often in life we have to believe that just invest the effort. Just put in the effort, put in the kochos. So we'll say, sometimes even in our own lives, we put in effort to do things and we don't necessarily see the results. The results are always there. Sometimes they become apparent and visible now. It's sometimes only later on. Sometimes after we leave this world, sometimes only generations later. Rabbi Zera probably thought that he failed, but he was resounding success. Lesson number three. Rabbi said the first step to tshuva is not anything you do. The first step to tshuva is something you feel. Rabbi Soloveitchik writes about this. Rav Gifter, zechus tells Rosh Shiva, has a small sefer called Hirhure Tshuva, where he writes right around the Rabban Hilchos Tshuva, and he writes about this idea of Hirhur Tshuva. Hirhur Tshuva, let's say, is that moment in life. That moment in life where you take a step back and you say to yourself, I want to live differently. How, what, where, that I'm not sure about. But I know that I want things to be different. Did I change anything in my life? Not a thing. Did anything alter? Not at all. But here, I know that I want something to be different. And I both say, I was thinking about this last night. I was looking at the daf, and actually, Ari was making the coffee. We had we had the daf Yomi team over here late at night. I was making the coffee. I was praying the daf. I was looking at this, and I thought to myself, this is incredible. I both said, do you know what the most incredible thing about coming to a new space is? Most incredible thing, besides the aesthetics, the most incredible thing is whenever you have something new in life, it's an opportunity for hischatshus. It's an opportunity for renewal. In other words, there's something new happening over here. So now, I could do something new as well. And again, all of us have something we have to change in life. I will say, but it's an opportunity to say, okay, life as I knew it came to a stop. Now there's something new. So what do I want to do with this newness? And today, I think it's a profound day of hirhur. Maybe I want to do something differently in my learning. Maybe I want to do something different in my davening. Maybe I want to do something different in my benantam l'chaver. I don't know, whatever it is. But whenever something new occurs around you, there's this opportunity for hirhur. I'm not doing anything new yet, but I want to think about how do I want life to be different. Incredible. All right, let's go back there. Shalosh shuros. Shalosh rows. Remember again, what did the Mishnah say? The Mishnah said that halacha l'maaseh again, there are 3 rows of students in front of the Beis Din. So the Mishnah says, Am Rabbi Shema mina naidi kulhu naidi. Then the Shabbat will say, what do you see from here? When one person moves, everyone moves. Right? Why? Because what ends up happening, when they pull a student out of the first row, what happens? Someone from row number 2 goes to row number 1. Someone from row number 3 goes to row number 2. And then someone from the kihila comes to row. So you see from here that whenever one person makes movement, everybody makes movement. Rabosai, by the way, another tremendous Musar Haskell. Right? Echad ki naidi kulu naidi. Let's say, never underestimate the power of your hirhur and the power of your movement on other people. When people see you move, they are inspired to do the same. People see you push yourself. People see you take on more. People see you be mechadesh. They want to do the same. When one moves, we all move. So we'll say, one second, here's the issue. So we'll say, remember again, not only did it matter which row you were in, but apparently there were also rankings on where in the row, right? On one end, right, there was a front and the back of the row. So like being in front of the row was very chashuv. Being in back of the row was not as chashuv. So here's the problem. So imagine the following scenario, right? They pull someone from row 1, which means now someone from row 2 comes into row 1, and not just someone. Remember, it's like a conveyor belt. Who comes from row 2 into row 1? The first guy in the row of row 2 comes to row 1. But where does he come on row 1? Where does he come on row 1? He comes to the back of the row, or the end of the row on row 1. So row 2 guy says, listen, you know what? I think I'd rather be a big fish in a little pond. Like, in other words, that at the end of the day, I was a rowhead. You know what it means to be a rowhead? Like, that's like big stuff. So I was the row head in row number 2. Now what am I? Now I'm the guy in row number 1. I'm the end of the row number 1. I think I'd rather go back to row number 1, to row number 2. To which the Gemara says, Rabbi, we tell him, Darmi lehachi havizarav la'arayos va'ati rosh l'shualim. It is better to be a tail to lions than it is to be better to be a tail to lions than it is to be a head of foxes. Right? So the idea over here is, you're right, in other words, essentially, it's better to be a small fish in a big pond than it is to be a big fish in a small pond. So better to be in row 1, even if you're at the end of the row, than ultimately, again, to be at the head of row 2. Incredible. Let's go back to Mishnah. What's that incredible Mishnah? Keitzad ma'aymin ha'sa'idim. So how do we go ahead and, now, literally, ma'aymin literally means intimidate. But again, understand over here, so what is this, like halacha wants witness intimidation? The answer is yes. Right? Where is this? This is capital cases. Because remember again, about say we don't make any secret about it. By capital cases, what's the goal? The goal by capital cases is to exonerate. That's the goal. So therefore, again, we want to do anything and everything in our power to ensure that there is, in fact, exoneration. So the Gemara says, Keitzad ma'aymin ha'sa'idim al eidei nefashos hayu machnisin oso. So this is what we do. We bring in the witnesses and we say to them, Shema Tomru me'omed, or mishmua id mipi eid, or mipi adam namansh, right? So again, we ask the witnesses, tell us, where do you have your information from? Maybe again, umad, we'll say umad means like circumstantial evidence. Maybe you have circumstantial evidence. Maybe you heard about it from someone else, or even from someone who's trustworthy. Shema iyata yodum shesafenu livdok eschem b'jisha v'chakira. Perhaps you didn't know, by the way, that you're going to be subject to a very rigorous cross-examination. Just know monetary law, or I should say capital law, is not like monetary law. So monetary law, if you get it wrong, and you adjudicate the case incorrectly, so what's the worst case scenario? You have to pay back money. But again, if you testify wrongly in capital cases, so punishment will be exacted from you and from generations to come. That iniquity will hover over your family for generations to come. Ad sofa olam. Literally again, until the end of the world. Because again, Cain killed Havel. And what happens when Cain killed Havel? So the pasuk says, Shneimar dimei achecha tzoakim. So let's say, so the pasuk said the bloods, plural, the bloods of your brother are calling out. Eino omer dam achicha. It doesn't say the blood of your brother. Rather, ela demei achecha. The bloods of your brother. Damo, demei achicha, damo v'dam zar osav. So Cain was held accountable not only for the death of Cain, not only for the death of Hevel, but what? All the future generations that Hevel could have produced. So in other words, when you take a life, not only are you taking the life of that individual, but one is taking the life ultimately again of all the future generations who could have come from that individual as well. Davar acher, the other possibility is the me'achacha. What does it mean again, the me'achacha? So again, shahaya dama mushlach al itzim va'avanim. It's also possible that, remember, we'll talk about this, Cain did not know how to kill Hevel. As such, in other words, because no one ever took life before, as such, he struck him multiple times. So unfortunately, Hevel's blood was everywhere. That's why the Torah used lashon of demei, plural. Lefichach nivra adam yichidi. Therefore, I will say a person was created in a singular fashion. Whereas the Baruch Hu created man, he created Adam as a singular being. To tell us what Lamdecha, Shekala ma'abed nefesh achas mi Yisrael, ma'ala alav akasav ki ilu ibeid olam malei. So we'll say, so just like the world was built from one person, so therefore taking of one life is like ki ilu. Imagine if someone would have killed Adam Arishon, the world would have ended. So to any time one person is lost, any time someone takes a life, it's as if he has destroyed an entire world. We'll talk more about this. But again, the converse is also true. If you go out and you save a life, or as well say, Mekayim doesn't even have to be saved. But Mekayim also means what? Uphold, or establish, or sustain one life. It's as if a person has sustained an entire world. And I will say ultimately again, all of this is to maintain peace, right, within Klal Yisrael, within the Shalo Yomar Adam Lechavero, Abba Gadol Me'avicha. So this is another reason. Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu make it that all of humanity traces itself to one person, to Adam? So there shouldn't be any geological contest, right? All of us trace ourselves to the same first person, Adam Rishon. Furthermore, if there was more than one first person, so what would end up happening? People would say, oh, there must be different gods. This God created his guy, and this guy had created his guy, right? And everybody created their own God. Listen to this, and also to tell us the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Sha'adam tovea kama matbeos b'chosem echad kulan dome zelazeh. You know, if a person wants to mint a coin, so what could happen? A person can mint a coin, and he can make it that every single coin looks exactly the same. Every coin looks the same. Yet all men are created in the image of Adam. Right? Adam was the first man, is the model. So men are created in the image of Adam. And I will say, no two people are alike. No two people are alike. Right? So even though again we're all created, so to speak, like in the form, in the image of Adam, no two people are exactly alike. Lefichach, kol echad ve'echad chayiv lomar. Therefore, both say again, because no two of us are alike, every person is obligated to say, Bishvili nivra ha'olam. The world was created for me. I will say, the Katzker, famous Varta, the Katzker. The Katzker said a person has two pockets, right? In one pocket, you carry with you the phrase, the mantra, Bishvili nivra ha'olam. The world was created for me. And in the other pocket, you have to carry the mantra, Va'anochi afar ve'efer. I'm nothing but dust. Katzker says, I will say, this is the two pockets of the Yid. On one hand, again, I know, right? The world was created for me. In other words, we'll say, if I am alive, that means the world needs me. If I'm here, that means somehow humanity needs me. The world needs me. Maybe not the lavdavka to discover a cure for illness, but I'm here for something. I mean, there is no such thing as purposeless life. So, kol ha'olam nivra b'shvili. The world was created for me, not to serve me. The world was created for me to do something of tremendous significance. But that could unfortunately create a tremendous sense of gaiva as well. And therefore, in the other pocket, what do you have to have? Anochi afar ve'efar. I come from dust, and ultimately, again, I go back to dust. Incredible. V'shematom, as well as I say, now remember, so I just want to point out, you could totally lose yourself, like in a Mishnah like this, right? What is this about? So now, what was the point of this entire discussion? The point of this was to go ahead and intimidate the witnesses. So now it says, the Gemara, V'shematom ru amud beis. So the witness says, you know, can you imagine? You're a witness in Beis Din. What are you going to say to yourself? What are you going to say afterwards? You say, you know what? Forget it. You're right. Good job. Right? Good job. I'm out. Right? In other words, what do I need this for at all? So the Gemara says, so no, it's not so pashut. Because if you have testimony, ultimately, again, you have an obligation to share it. The Shema Tomru, similarly, again, I'll say there is also a mitzvah to wipe out the wicked. So, in other words, if a person is guilty, a person is culpable, ultimately, again, there is reason to go ahead and wipe out the wicked as well. So I'll say, so again, you could do such a good job at intimidation that no one wants to go ahead and participate in anything. That's where we remind them, first of all, testimony is an obligation, is a responsibility. So make sure to do your testimony. Furthermore, halach l'maisa, there is a mitzvah to remove evil from this world. The Rebbe says it's a tremendous musar haskell. You know, sometimes in life, when something becomes too difficult, we're like, what do I need this for? What do I need this for? We'll say, that's not how life works. If there's a responsibility, there's a responsibility. Just because it's difficult does not give me the right to absent myself from that dramatic responsibility. So you're right, giving testimony, it's hard. There's a trend that you might be wrong. But again, just because it's hard and difficult doesn't mean you're allowed to walk away. Incredible. So let's say, let's go. Kate Sad Muhammad. So what does it mean? Right? One of the things we ask the witnesses is it possible that you didn't really see Reuven kill Shimon, but rather, again, you're kind of basing your testimony on circumstantial evidence? The Gemara says, what's an example of circumstantial evidence? Says the Gemara, Omer Lahen, Shema Kachri Isem, maybe you saw the following scenario. Shiratz Achar Chaver L'Chorba, Ve'ratz Tem Acharav, Umatzasam Sayif Biyado, V'dam Metafte, V'harag Mefarfer, Im Kachri Isem, Lo Risim. This is incredible. So listen to this. Imagine the following scenario. I see Reuven running after Shimon, right? So I see Reuven running after Shimon. So I run after Reuven, and I walk in, and Reuven and Shimon are in an isolated place. What happens? Shimon's on the floor dying because someone stabbed him. Reuven's holding a knife with blood on it. So again, I connect the dots, and I say to myself, what happened over here? Reuven killed Shimon. The Gemara says, if that's your testimony, that's circumstantial. In other words, in order to go ahead and testify in a capital case, I have to have seen Reuven actually plunge the knife into Shimon. If I didn't see, but again, now, that seems like pretty compelling circumstantial evidence. It is, but it's circumstantial nevertheless. So that would be an example of testimony based on circumstantial evidence. So Tanya, Amr Rabbi Shimon Shatach, Erev ben Nechama. So Rabbi Shimon Shatach says, again, Erev ben Nechama is like a lashon of shvua, like, I swear, in Lo Ra'isi Echad Sheratz Achar Chaver L'Chorba, Vrasi Echad. So Rabbi Shimon Shatach says, this happened to me. Right? I saw someone run. I saw Reuven running after Shimon, and they went into an isolated place. V'ratzti Acharov, and I ran after him. V'ra'isi Sayif Biyado. I saw Reuven holding the knife. V'damo mitaftev, and there's blood dripping off the knife. V'harag mefarfer, and Shimon is literally again like in the throes of death. V'amarti lo, and I said to Reuven, Rasha, mi hargal lazeh, o ani o ata. So listen to this. And what Rabbi Shimon Shetach says, I said to Reuven, someone killed Shimon, and it's either me or you, because we're the only two people here. And I'll tell you one thing, it wasn't me. Right? But what can I do? There's no testimony against you. Shariat Torah Amra Apishnayim Edim Yumasames. So again, it's easy. So Shem and Shetach was saying the issue over here is I'm only an Eid Echad. Now the truth is, again, Tilson Rashi point out, even if he wasn't an Eid Echad, even if there are two witnesses, it still wouldn't have been good Eidus. Why not? At most, it's circumstantial. It's only circumstantial. But nevertheless, Hayodea Machshavos Yipara Me'osa Isha Harages Chavero. But again, Chadash Baruch Hu, who knows the thoughts of man, should ultimately, again, go ahead and collect payments. Should punish Reuven if you went ahead and you killed Shimon. Amr lo zazim misham at shebanachash v'kishu meis. They literally, again, they didn't even move away until a snake came along and went ahead and bit Reuven, and he died. So the Gemara says, here's what's interesting. But why would he die by snake bite? Why would Reuven die by snake bite? After all, V'amar Rav Yosef, v'chein tani d'vei Chizkiya, miyom shecharav beis hamikdosh, From the day that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, even though again there is no Sanhedrin, so because there's no Sanhedrin, there's no dalad misos, right? There are no death penalties, but yet again the death penalties, the arba misos, are not nullified; they still apply. Tomorrow says lo batl habat. It's not true; they don't apply. There's no basin to carry them out. So it says incredible. Ella din arba misos lo batl. So says incredible Gemara. What it means is that sometimes if a person is chayiv one of the death penalties that Sanhedrin normally carry out, so the HaKadosh Baruch Hu carries them out in different ways. For example, Mishin is chayiv skila. If somebody did something that would warrant skila, so what happens to such a person? So o nofel min agag o chayav darsaso. He falls off a roof or he is trampled upon by a wild animal. So we'll say this is skila-like, because the way skila was done is first you were thrown off a roof, and then if the fall didn't kill you, then ultimately again, they would stone you afterwards. So Mishnah is chayiv streifa. If somebody is chayiv streifa, right? Streifa would normally be done again through molten lead being well, we're going to talk about all of this being poured down the throat of the individual. O nofel b'dleika, o nachash makisho. Either you die in a fire, or ultimately again a snake bites you. So we see that a snake bite, the venom. Thank you. The venom is equivalent to sreifa. So Mishnah is, the Gemara says, oh no, Mishnah is chayv hariga. If somebody was chayv hariga, right? So the Gemara says, oh nimsar l'malchus, they'll be given over to the monarchy, which would normally be beheading. Oh listin ba'in alav. Oh, they would be killed by listin. Mishnah is chayv chanek, someone who's chayv for strangulation. Oh toveh benar, he drowns. Oh meis b'sirchoni, or he dies of sirchoni. Both say sirchoni was this disease where the airway constricted. So both say, so what do you see from here? That even though there's no Sanhedrin, HaKadosh Baruch Hu finds ways to bring about the Daled Misos Beis Din. Both say, now the point over here is, if Reuben indeed killed Shimon, the punishment for that ultimately again would be cherev, would be beheading. So the might say, why did he die by snake bite, which is streifa? Amri ahu chet achrisi havabei. Apparently, Reuven had a lot of problems, right? Murder wasn't his only big thing. He had other averos that he was chayiv for, and those other averos carried a penalty of streifa. Streifa is considered to be one of the more chamer forms of execution. The Amar Mar Mishan is chayiv shtei misos beis din nidor b'chamura. Because also we learned that in general, if somebody is chayiv two different forms of execution by Beis Din, he's given the more severe of the two. So apparently, this guy was chayiv streifa and charev, and therefore Allah L'maisa again he was killed by the streifa. Incredible. Let's go weiter. Bedine nefash. So Gemara says me'omed. Bedine nefash zudulam dinan. Now it's interesting about saying it's only by capital cases that we do not adjudicate based on circumstantial evidence. Ha bedine mamanis amdinan. But it sounds like over here that in monetary cases we would adjudicate based on circumstantial evidence. So what's going on over here? So the Gemara says as follows. So the Gemara says Kiman Krabi Acha. It's like Krabi Acha. We'll say, by the way, the Chavra coming in for davening. You don't have to send them back. Feel free to take seats. There's plenty of seats by the tables. Make yourself comfortable. So the Gemara says, Kiman Krabi Acha, Disanya, Rabbi Acha Omer, Gamal Ocher Ben Agmalim. So let's listen to this. If a camel is mating amongst the other camels, so what's ta'alacha? V'nimtza gamal harag bitzido. And now after the whole mating zach takes place, so what happens? So one of the camels is found dead. So apparently again, the camels get lebedig when they mate. So what happens? So one of them now, so we find the dead camel next to the mating camel. So what's ta'alacha? So the Gemara says, Biyadua shezeh hargo. We know that the mating camel must have killed the other camels, right? Because again, camels could get lebedig. So the Gemara says, so Vose, now what is that? That's circumstantial evidence. Well, the Ta'amech, according to the same reasoning, Eid mi pi eid diktani bedine nefesh asu d'lam rinan ha bedine mamanes amrinan. Also using that same logic, right? If one witness hears from another witness, right? So halacha l'mais again. Remember, we just said also eid mi pi eid, which means one witness hears from another witness. So that doesn't work by dine nefashos, but bepashos would that work by dine mamanes? So the Gemara says, so v'hatnan im amar hu amar li shani chayev lo ish ploni amar li shu chayev lo amar klum. Lo Amar Klum. So the Gemara says, so yet again, if halacha ma'aseh dine mamanis, right? We come and I say, you know what? Reuven told me that he's chayiv $1,000 to Shimon, right? Or someone told me that Reuven's chayiv to Shimon $1,000. What's the halacha? So the Gemara says, Lo Amar Klum. Such a statement is meaningless. The only time the testimony is going to be meaningful is if Ruvain says in front of witnesses, I am chayiv to Shimon 200 zuz. So you see from here that Eid Mipi Eid doesn't work. Alma, afagav de pasili b'dini mamanis, amina luhu b'dini nefasha. So we'll say, here's what's interesting. You're right. All the Gemara is suggesting over here is there are certain disqualifications by dine mamanis. Certain disqualifications by dine nefashas that apply also by dine mamanis. Just the derech of the Mishnah is to state certain things explicitly by dine nefashas and not by dine mamanis. So, for example, Eid Mipi Eid is explicitly stated that it doesn't work by dine nefashas, but it also doesn't work by dine mamanis. Hachanami afagav depsil dine mamanis amrina luhu b'dine nefashas. So we'll say so too over here that Allah l'maisa, even though it's true that even circumstantial evidence may not work by Dinei Mamanis, but yet the Mishnah feels compelled to explicitly state it by Dinei Nefash. So we'll stop over here today. We went a little fast at the end. Much more about this. I will say, Shkoyach again. Chevra coming in. There's plenty of room. There are seats in the tables. Plenty of open spaces. Make yourself good. Sit by in a proper makom. Chevra, make sure that your stuff is not taking up any additional spaces. One last housekeeping announcement. And I apologize for this. I know it might sound a little bit petty. Just a request. Baruch Hashem, thank you to Ari Lerner for getting lids for the cups. Just feel free if you'd like an extra insurance policy. If you'd like to use a lid, we would love to have you use them. Again, they're in the kitchen right by the cups as well. Shkoyach, everyone. Yeah, we're going to get you on lids. All right, Chavra on Zoom. Shkoyach, everyone.